Welcome back, friends. Love is in the air, and it's February. I can't believe we already made it through January. Today we're cooking up something super special. Hopefully you can share it with your loved one. We're doing lobster risotto. Let's get into it. So to start, let's talk about what we'll need for this recipe. Thankfully, there isn't a ton. First, we'll need 1 cup of Arborio rice. Arborio rice is an Italian short grain rice that is super plump and has a ton of starch in it. We need something to cook the rice in. For this recipe, we'll be using 3.5 to 4 cups of seafood stock or fish stock, kind of whatever you have. This is what I could find in a local store, and it works. Next, we need a half a cup of dry wine. Any dry wine will be fine. I generally go with something I like to drink so the wine won't go to waste. We will need onions. I used a half of a medium small onion here, which I small diced. Of course, we need salt and pepper. I like to use white pepper in risotto. It keeps it from having the little black specks throughout it. It's a personal preference, so you can use black pepper if that's all you have. Next, we have 2 cloves of garlic, minced. Feel free to add more or less garlic. So this dish is super rich and needs a little color when you plate it. I'm using green onions. However, chives or parsley will work just fine. Finally, we have 2 lobster tails. We're gonna butterfly these tails, however you can pick whatever technique that you like best. To butterfly a lobster tail, I start by cutting down the back of the tail with a pair of scissors. I then use a spoon to help separate the top of the tail meat from the top of the shell. Once I've finished separating the meat from the top of the shell, I start to work on the bottom of the shell. Sometimes it helps to squeeze and crack the bottom of the shell if it's kind of a smaller shell. Now I'm going to use my index finger to separate the rest of the meat. I run my finger along the inside of the shell, separating the meat as I go. Once you have released all the tail meat from the shell, you can pull the meat out and place it on top of the shell, leaving the end of the tail intact. Now simply place the meat on top of the shell. That's all there is to butterflying a lobster tail. If you've ever made risotto or cooked lobster, you'll notice I forgot a few things. That's because I didn't check my list before I started taking photos, so those missing ingredients are 2 pats of butter, the zest of a lemon, and a cup of Parmesan cheese. We're gonna move over to the stove because I needed a couple of pans for this, so we'll see you over there. Before we start cooking the risotto, preheat the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. We also need to warm our stock. Fill a medium saucepan with the 4 cups of seafood stock. Turn to medium heat. You really don't need this to come to a boil. It really just needs to be hot or warm, somewhere in there. To start, heat a second pot over medium heat. Once hot, add some olive oil, followed by your diced onions. Cook these just until they're transparent. Cook mine a little too long here, but that's okay. Next, add your garlic. Cook until it becomes fragrant. Next, we're gonna add our Arborio rice. Kind of mix the rice around to make sure that it's covered in oil, and we're gonna lightly toast these. Just for a couple of minutes, stirring every 30 seconds or so. To start, add your wine. Stir continuously, not allowing your risotto to sit for more than a minute at a time. Cook the risotto until the wine is nearly gone. Now we're gonna add a ladle of stock. We're gonna reduce this stock until there's almost no liquid left, and we're gonna do this over and over and over again until the rice is cooked. The creamy texture risotto has is because of the starch in the rice. Cooking Arborio rice like you would normally cook regular rice won't pull out enough starches, so your risotto is not going to be creamy. Stirring will help the rice from sticking to the bottom, and it also helps release the starch from the rice. This is why risotto has such a creamy texture. Ever so often, I'll run my spatula along the side of the pot to remove any buildup of starch or stock. This will also burn and will give your risotto kind of some off taste. Now we're just gonna work through our stock, adding it at 1 ladle at a time, reducing, such and such and such and such. When you're about 15 minutes into cooking your risotto, we're gonna place 2 lobster tails onto a small sheet pan, cover the top with olive oil, salt and pepper to taste. Now we're gonna place them in the oven and cook for 7 to 10 minutes. We're looking for an internal temperature of 135 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, back to the risotto. We should only have 5-10 minutes of cooking left. Keep on ladling your broth and reducing it. The risotto should start to get super creamy as the starch continue to do their thing. After about 20 minutes, I start to taste the risotto. How balanced is the seasoning? You know, we're gonna add some parm here shortly, which will make it more salty. So do I have just kind of the right amount of salt? Just a little less than what I expected? Is it to the level of doneness I want? If everything's good, I'll go ahead and pull it off. If not, I'll continue to cook or make adjustments as needed. Once you're happy, it's time to add some cheese and mix it into the risotto. This next step is optional, but I find adding a zest of a lemon really brightens up the dish and goes very well with the seafood flavor that it has. So we're gonna do that, we're gonna mix, and we're done cooking. So for plating, I'm gonna show two different techniques here. One with the whole butterfly lobster and one with just the tail meat. You know, you can have as much fun here as you would like. This is kind of just a demonstration, so go with what your heart feels. For each of the two platings, I'm gonna use a 3 to 4 inch pastry cutter as a mold. I'm gonna fill the mold with the risotto, pull the mold. Now I'm gonna place the lobster on top of the rice, then hit the plate with a little parm and a little green garnish. Same thing for the second plate. Rice and mold, but this time I'm gonna remove the tail meat and place that on top of the rice. And then once again, garnish with some parm and some of that green stuff. Well, wasn't that a fun cook? I cannot wait to get into this. Testing this recipe, we've got to eat a lot of lobster. We play with a bunch of different type of platings, and so this is by far the easiest style to eat. The whole tail out, this just kind of looks like you know what you're getting with it. But let's give it a little bite. Man, so good. A little lobster bite. That sweet meat is just hard to beat in any way. Definitely the hardest thing to cook in this recipe is a risotto, and it's not even that difficult of a thing to cook. It just has a lot of active paying attention time in it. This is sure to please your loved one on that special day if you can't happen to find a reservation. Or you can just make this for or him the weekend of a second little dish. I want to thank you for stopping by today. Remember to like and subscribe. Give your loved one a big hug and a kiss and tell them how much you appreciate them. And we'll see you next time. Peace.
Cool.
Okay, baby. A little, another round of lobster risotto.